Hello everyone, and welcome back to my Dungeons & Dragons channel, where we take the rules of 5e and figure out how to use, exploit, and homebrew in order to make our games more fun. Today we'll be focusing on the homebrew part of the equation. In my homebrew world of Terra Vial, on the continent of Yorworld, there's a city called Hafnia, and in the city of Hafnia, they have mandatory military service. And as part of that, they've developed a high-quality magic college with a particular focus on war magic. Because of this, the city guard contains conventional martial guards like you would expect, but they also have a few members who have studied and trained in war magic. I wanted to create a stat block that represented a relatively mundane guard who had been trained in this type of magic. To help develop that, I started with the features that the war magic wizard subclass gets uniquely at these early levels. The two of these that are going to be really important for us are Tactical Wit and Arcane Deflection. Tactical Wit just gives us a small boost to our initiative, allowing us to add our intelligence, boosting it from +1 to +3, which is a nice little boost for our guard who needs to be ready to maintain the peace in a world full of what are effectively chaotic superheroes. The other feature we need to take a look at is Arcane Deflection, which lets us use our reaction to add +2 to our AC or +4 to a saving throw, which does help increase our survivability. But when you use it, you're not allowed to cast a spell other than Cantrips in the next round, which hurts this feature because we're not so great at physical attacks. We do have Firebolt though, we can use that as our cantrip, and so at the very least, this is good if this guard needs to retreat. Adding these features onto a relatively low-level stat block gets us pretty close to what we want. So let's talk about what those stats look like. We start with +0 across the board in most skills: Strength, Con, Wisdom, and Charisma. We have a +2 in Intelligence and a +1 in Dexterity. We're better than average, but this is not a high-level guard we're dealing with. Our base AC is only 12. But as DMs, we're going to assume that since these are magic users, they cast Mage Armor at the beginning of their shift and actually have an AC of 14. These guards have 17 hit points because they're a 4th level wizard, so 6 HP at level 1 and 3 extra d6. It's not super high, but it is like 2.5 goblins, and makes this a decently formidable character to put in low-level encounters. It's helped by the fact that war magic guards almost always go out on patrol with at least one martial guard to help engage threats, keep them further away, and allow the magic guard to really thrive. The other things we really need to highlight before we get into spells and how to play this is just our skills and saving throws. We have a +2 proficiency bonus, so we have a +4 intelligence save and a +2 wisdom save. We're +0 in every other save. There's proficiency in Arcana and History, giving us a +4 on those, but that doesn't really matter. It's a guard, right? Also, make sure you remember that you have that bonus to initiative because this character is not super sturdy. We want to get them into the combat early so they've got a chance to actually get some things off. Now we get into the tricky part for building a spell using NPC, and that's spell loadout and how to use them. We're a 4th level wizard with a +4 to hit on our spell attacks and a DC 12 spell save. Starting with cantrips, we take Firebolt, Friends, and Message. Message is used to help coordinate with other guards. Friends is used if they need to step up and help with interrogation or try to calm down a challenging situation. And Firebolt is the primary damage dealer for this guard. Our 1st level spells, we have 4 slots for, but we're generally using 1 at the beginning of the day to cast Mage Armor, so behave as if you have 3. We use those for Charm Person, which can be used to calm down potentially volatile situations, Mage Armor, as we mentioned, Sleep, which these guards use to try to subdue enemies, and Alarm, which was added to this spell list because when these guards were being deployed in my world, in the first encounter my players encountered them, they were at the largest prison in Hafnia, and so they used things like Alarm to lock different areas of the prison off and know if someone crossed it. Finally, the 2nd level spells that we have are Hold Person, which is used to try to lock down someone who needs to be arrested or otherwise neutralized, Arcane Lock, which was used to help lock prisoners up, and Detect Thoughts, which again comes into play if this war magic guard is called in for an interrogation. How exactly you play this guard is going to depend a little bit on the situation you drop them in for. When my players encountered them, they were trying to bust their Zentarum handler out of prison. So in that case, the guards were primarily throwing out hold person spells to try to lock down various players and using Firebolt for damage as the more martial guards tried to engage. If instead the War Magic guard is called to a bar brawl, they may instead try something like Charm Person to get people to calm down, or Sleep to incapacitate them for long enough to shackle them. If they're investigating a crime, they're going to rely on Charm Person, Friends, and Detect Thoughts to try to gather information as they move through the case. If they need to lock someone in prison, well, that's where the Alarm and Arcane Lock spells that I mentioned come up. You, of course, can always choose to use your action to attack with your dagger, but you shouldn't and mostly won't. There's a few other things you can do to make this build a little bit stronger or different that I think I want to mention before we close out this video. You could add shield or absorb elements into the first level spells. Both of these spells would make sense, and if I was playing a low level War Magic character, I would certainly have them. Frankly, as a DM, keeping track of that many reactions and that many varied ACs and resistances was not something I wanted to do in low level encounters, so I decided against it. Plus, we do have Arcane Deflection, which is not as powerful as Shield, but does give us a little bit of that same benefit. Plus, you don't want to make low CR monsters too beefy. It can be fun when you're homebrewing to try to make things as powerful or as scary as possible. But just remember, we want this to fit in our world. This is someone who has been studying as part of their mandatory service, as part of the state-funded college to learn these skills. They are going to be good. They're going to be far better than the average citizen. But they are not like an exceptional adventurer or something who has left that path to go find something on their own. If you really want to make this more powerful, then in your head, bump this to a 5th level wizard. Give them a few extra hit points, add Fireball, and add Counterspell. Increase your proficiency to +3, and suddenly, your spell save DC is higher, your attack roll is higher, and you are able to more effectively shut down other magic users who this guard may come across. Fans of this channel might be shouting at me for including Fireball, because I previously did an entire video where I said there are a bunch of spells better than Fireball at that level, and I stand by that. But these are guards again. The look in your player's eyes the first time you hit them with a Fireball is worth it. But you may decide against it, deciding that an urban guard wouldn't use something with a 20-foot radius because the risk of collateral damage is too high. Maybe they're using a more targeted lightning bolt or something else. Play with what fits in your world. If I was actually playing this leveled up version of this where they had just that single 3rd level spell slot, I would almost certainly be saving it for Counterspell nonetheless. Unless I, had multiple of these guards, and then I'd have a couple move up to Counterspell and a couple stay back to Fireball and then Firebolt. But I think the more important takeaway from this is that building a homebrew creature that the party will face is different than building a character who will be a member of the party. And it's even different than building what I call named NPCs. Named NPCs are powerful people who are often allies of the party, and those I'm willing to cheese up a bit. I'm willing to make more complex builds with more for me to keep track of, because they're not standard. They are meant to be these unique individuals in the world. Overall, I've been pretty happy with this homebrew when I need a relatively low CR magic user, and it fit very well in my world. First, I want to know, do you think this could work in your world? Do you have things I should have done differently? Let me know in the comments, and make sure to check out some of my past videos. Thank you.